Before we begin our hike today, I'm in Denver outside of the First Unitarian Church, which is a member of the Unitarian Universalist Association. As such, their congregants are non-dogmatic. Instead, they focus on social justice issues. They have 7 principles, which basically boil down to respect each other and respect nature. And as such, they don't necessarily believe in fire and brimstone, but their blocks on the outside of the building, they tell a different story. Come with me and let's explore that story. The hike begins here at the corner of Crystal Valley and Lions Paw Street in Castle Rock, Colorado. And I will put the Latin long on my description page. We'll go out that way, up that trail. Let's go. So here's a map of the area. We're here at Quarry Mesa Park, and we're gonna go up this trail and take a left and go up to our outcrop right about here, and then we'll loop around the whole mesa and return the same way. We're coming up towards the water tower, and that's off limits. And you can see in front of me there is a large outcrop of sandstone called the Dawson Formation, and we'll be looking at that up here. You can see, maybe you can see over there, Pikes Peak. We're about 15 miles from the actual mountain range over there, and so up we go on this dirt path. So our story begins about 36 million years ago, and that's kind of hard for most people to put in their imagination what that really means. So if I were to take one of my feet, which is about 1 foot in length, and say that that was 100 years, and go 2 feet, 3 feet, that would be equivalent to what the age of our country is. And if I continued on for 20 feet, that would bring you back 2,000 years to when the Roman Empire and Jesus was running around. If I were to continue on to get to 36 million years, I would have to do this one step in front of the other for 68 miles or 110 kilometers. Okay, so this is as good of a place as any to look at the Dawson Formation. You can see that there's like a pebble conglomerate, fairly small pebbles, a little bit of granite in here, quartzes, and it's fairly loose. It's not very consolidated. We can determine that there's some good sized pebbles in here too. This is most likely, well, definitely is, erosion from the current Rocky Mountains. The Rocky Mountains stopped rising about 53 million years ago. As the Rocky Mountains came up, again, it was under compression, so they came up and they came eastward as well over what they call the Golden Fault. But as that occurred, erosion, it filled in and created basically a plain with a slightly steeper slope right about here, starting roughly right here, or maybe further up there a little bit. So if you were walking along here back in the day, you wouldn't really notice mountains like you do here today. What you would notice is just a slight change in slope, and you would be going uphill from here to central Colorado. And then maybe a few peaks poking through, like Pikes Peak. So let's go kind of up and through there. So here's a schematic cross-section of what I'm talking about. The left side, which is the west side, moved up along that fault, and as so, the erosion of the Rocky Mountains produced what they call here the Green Mountain Conglomerate. This cross-section is closer to Denver. That Green Mountain Conglomerate is the same as the Dawson Formation that we're looking at right here. That conglomerate forms a nice, gently dipping plain. So I go from a sandstone conglomerate, I guess, deposit here that is stream deposits from, again, the Rocky Mountains, which are 15 miles away. And they're gray in color, again, with pebbles in it. And as I go up here, all of a sudden, you can notice right up through here, it turns pink. It's the color of potassium feldspar. It's a typical feldspar that's in granite. Now, the thing about this is these pieces crush real easily in your fingers, and they're angular. I don't believe this was washed down in the streams. I do think that from roughly there to the boundary of that tuff there, I believe this is an ash fall. This feldspar would not survive like this in a stream environment for 15 miles. 36 million years ago, you had a lot of igneous activity deep within the earth, causing a lot of volcanics throughout Colorado. And so most likely you had this large ash fall from a fairly large eruption. But then shortly after that, and I don't know what shortly means, you have this material deposited, and it is hard. This is a welded tuff, and this is what many buildings in Denver are composed of. So what is this? Well, this is a rhyolite tuff. Again, it is a volcanic, but this is different than this ash flow down here. This is a pyroclastic flow, and they've traced its origin to the Mount Brimstone area, in an area that they called, that doesn't exist anymore, but they called Wall Mountain, and Wall Mountain blew its top, and it produced a huge pyroclastic flow which rushed down the mountain and down this basically flat plain that existed between here and there at hundreds of miles an hour, and spewed out all along here and even over there. An ash fall is when an explosive volcano pumps a lot of volcanic ash high up into the atmosphere, which then is taken by the wind and will rain down upon the surface at a farther location. A pyroclastic flow is also due to a large explosive volcanic eruption, but in this case, the ash is very hot and flows down the mountain at incredible speeds and spreads itself out and solidifies usually hard as the ash cools once it has stopped. So we were up there, and we will continue down this path to the top of the mesa. You get to the top of the mesa, and up here you can see the mountain range, and this is where they mined about 15 feet thick of rhyolite for building material, mainly in Denver. Back in 1872, I believe this quarry was actually opened. So we'll continue and make a circular hike, and this is very good mainly for the views of the plains and the mountains. So as we walk around this mesa, you can really get a feel for the enormity of this pyroclastic flow and the amount of material it left. And these piles here of rock that was just left here after the quarrying, plus other mesas over there that have quarries on them as well. This is just an amazing amount of material that that came from that volcano and just spewed out all over this place here. Again, the pink feldspar making that rhyolite pink. We are back at First Unitarian Church in Denver. This congregation has had a long history of fighting for social justice causes. In 1962, it conducted a protest march at the Denver dry goods store because they would not hire blacks. They protested housing redlining. They protested the Vietnam War. More recently, they held their church services once a year on the Capitol steps in protest for the state not legalizing gay marriage. And now they stand with Black Lives Matter against police brutality towards unarmed people of color. They have even been vandalized because of their stance, as you can see here in the Black Lives Matter banner. These events happened because this building stood here as a place to meet and organize. This building was built in the late 1800s by architects and stonecutters that had a vision of great things to come. And those stones existed because of a mammoth volcanic eruption and pyroclastic flow. Some 36 million years ago. Thanks for hiking with me.